Good evening and welcome to All Things South Africa. So, whenever we go to South Africa, it comes with a little disclaimer that it might be somewhere that Alex likes to go, Alex likes to talk about, Alex
I've
likes to
only
get.
been there once, mate. It's not like I go all the time.
Well,
but
to be fair,
yes,
for those who have joined us previously, you would have thought he'd lived out there for 20 years. But loads of cool fun wines tonight. So thank you very much for joining us. Yeah, I'm really, really excited by this. For me, South Africa is, lots of people know it. Lots of people know the wine, and there's stuff that, you say South Africa, you think things like Chenin Blanc, you think things like Pinotage, which absolutely we've got in there today. But what I think is great about South Africa is where you have less rules and regulations compared to kind of like some European countries. It gives this wonderful opportunity for young winemakers to give it a go, to try something different, to get involved, to get some grapes that aren't going to cost you £1 million and try some cool stuff. So
that's absolutely fair.
So
we've got someone joining us from Sweden tonight. I hope we can introduce you to some cool South African wines, even if you probably don't have the wines from our tasting pack tonight. But still, it's great to have people joining us from all around the world.
Absolutely. Days. So for those who have been with us before, you know how this goes. Ask questions, tell us what you want to know, enjoy it. We are going to try and, as much as we can, stay on track. I think last month we got a little bit sidetracked by Alex. So excited by
surely not.
His mogs and daps and all those kind of things.
Yeah, so it's all right. We've got some science here as well. Oh no, that's not it. Okay.
But anyway, he's going already. So you know what? I'm going to get wine number one in the glass.
Yeah, let's get wine number one.
That's what I'm going to do.
Do join us. Pop your tasting notes in if you've got the wines in front of you. Pop your tasting notes in on Slido. It's towtc.co.uk/taste. And that is where you can pop your tasting notes in. Where are we starting? Well, obviously in South Africa. I think.
Sorry, I was just going to go with South Africa there just to go. So
helpful.
Absolutely. So we're starting in Swartland. And this is a Chenin Blanc. And Chenin Blanc is, it is absolutely... He's playing over there with some technology, as per usual. So I really think that when we talk about South Africa, when we talk about whites, we talk about Chenin Blanc. When we talk about reds, we talk about Pinotage. Are the two things that really come to mind. And Chenin is... There's great Chenin all over the world. You go to Loire Valley, you go to Vouvray, you see some bits and pieces in the US, especially down in Texas. They're making some fantastic things. Can you stop looking at your honeymoon snaps and get involved?
I'm trying to get the thingies on.
The vibe. Trying to get the vibe.
The vibe's all good.
So Chenin is generally this kind of like fresh, aromatic, light style grape, lots of flavours.
It's so fruity. It's like a fruit basket in a glass for me. And the wonderful thing about South Africa is you get all of this incredible fruit, and you when you sit down for breakfast, they'll bring out these fresh bowls of fruit, and it's so succulent, so ripe, so delicious, and it's a really, really cool thing to have.
Absolutely. So we talk about South Africa, and when we talk about South African wine, South Africa is a very, very big place. South Africa winemaking country, less of a big place.
Yeah.
Most of it is kind of in the southwest, a lot of it towards the coast, and then kind of coming inland from there, because that's how the world works.
Well,
you come inland from the coast.
Especially when it goes down to a kind of a pointy bit, like it does in South Africa.
But what that means is you can grow lots of different styles and lots of different things. And I remember on a previous tasting, I talked to a winemaker, and I said, Sauvignon Blanc is kind of like a South African Sauvignon Blanc. But if you're coastal, you can make these lovely, fresh, crisp styles of wine. Sauvignon Blanc does very, very well. And then as you go further inland where it gets a little bit warmer, you can make these richer, riper styles of wine.
Yeah.
But then within that, because you've got lots of mountains, lots of hills, lots of rivers, you've got all these little pockets of microclimates. Yeah. And what you've got in South Africa is... When we're in France, we talk about AOCs, AOP, DS. What they have is they have the WO system. So we've got our regions, which are big areas. We then have our districts, which are when we start talking about, kind of like a ward is a big area. So you'd say like Bordeaux or south of France is a ward. You've then got your districts, which, if we were in Bordeaux, would probably be Haut-Médoc or something like that.
Yep.
And then we've got our wards, which would be your Margaux. If that
makes sense.
So you go from big to smaller, And as you get in there, it's not always the rules and regulations change, but it's done on microclimate that there'll be this certain type of soil or this certain aspect, or it's this certain part of the hill that makes these things happen.
So where are we on this map now? So we can see the Cape, the Western Cape point. This is, as you can see, South Africa goes on in lots of different directions. You've got the Karoo, the Kleine Karoo, and the Great Karoo, which is the big sort of desert place. It does definitely get noticeably hotter as you go out, go inland, like we said. But particularly as we get down into those kind of really southern points, it's cooler. It's much cooler, and it's helped by the fact that you've got these quite steep slopes leading up to higher altitudes within quite a small distance. And
absolutely. So we're in the Swartland here, and
so this is basically the west part.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like coastal region just down there.
Just coming in from the coast, absolutely.
Yeah.
And a lot of this is generally associated with quite high production, quite kind of entry level drinkable wines.
Yeah.
Because some of it is fairly flat. It's quite temperate, so things grow quite well. It's moderate, but it's not overly cool, not overly warm. And it's called Swart. So Swart in Afrikaans is black.
Yeah.
And that's because what this foliage called rhino bush grows everywhere, and it is this really dark color. So it looks across the you look across the vineyards, and it just looks black. So it's the Swartland, the black lands.
I mean, it's absolutely true, and I think what you see when you go around South Africa, and particularly the Western Cape, is this incredible set of foliage. And I don't know if I mentioned, but while I was there on my honeymoon, we did a couple of exploring routes, and you keep count, everyone. It really is a dramatic place for the fauna and the flora. Obviously, the animals are, as you'd expect in South Africa, but these flowers, I think, were the most surprising thing. I just wasn't quite prepared for, the little succulents that you see, which have got these sort of little stores of of moisture for the dry periods, and that is, I think, the defining feature of the Swartland is that it's a really difficult place to grow grapes. It's a difficult place for plants to survive, and yet the Afrikaans, the farmers who settled there, they brought in plants from France and Spain, and somehow they managed to make them work in a place which was barely struggling to grow any kind of food and was pretty sparsely populated back in those days as well. So, it's a remarkable sort of place. And what they tend to do, the way that they tend to get the plants to survive is, a plant works by gathering sunshine and turning it into sugars through photosynthesis. That helps ripen the fruit, ripen the grapes, which are there to spread the seed. This is tricky because you don't want your grapes to ripen too fast. The best grapes struggle. They struggle to develop the kind of sugars and their flavours at the right kind of same speed. So they have to, all in Swartland, you see these incredibly low to the ground little bushes with maybe, 10 leaves on them. That's it. It's not like the big shrubbery that you see in.
It's not the rolling
hills full of Tuscany and grapevines. All the foliage going everywhere. It is a dry, sort of arid place with these little bushes struggling with deep roots that go right down to try to get some water out that they can, and that gives you the struggle. There's a producer called Ken Forrester, who is in the Swartland region. He's sort of known as the sort of the grandfather of Chenin Blanc, and he's I think he was one of the real pioneers of this space where they tried to conquer the difficult conditions to make this grape grow, and it's primarily a Loire grape, isn't it?
It is. So, you find it all over Loire, especially in Vouvray, and it does lend itself. Chenin lends itself to lots of different styles. You can make sparkling, you can make a dry style wine, you can make a sweet wine, you can make anything in between.
Yep.
We can put that away and we won't mention that's there. We will not bring that up. We'll just pop it on the screen. That's okay. But we should probably talk a little bit about the actual wine we're drinking.
Yeah, that's
'cause
fair.
The first
that's
one,
fair.
everyone will be
Sorry, I'm
Thursday.
talking
They'll be on wine number 4, and we'll be there.
Let's do that.
So
Okay.
this is Thorn and Daughters Cat's Cradle Chenin Blanc. So this is in an area called the Long Valley. I'm not even going to
Long
attempt my
Valley.
pronunciation. It's a Lodekloef Valley, I think
Okay.
it is, and that's at the bottom of the Perlberg Mountains. But what they do with here, rather than just make this nice, light, fresh, easy drinking Chenin, they do a little bit of oak aging, a little bit of lees aging, a little bit of batonnage. So there's a lot of wine making technique that goes on in this wine, which gives this lovely richness, this lovely texture. Single vineyard, and
this is the winemaker and his daughters, by the way, which is one of the cutest photos I've seen in from all of our wineries. Here they are, definitely abiding by health and safety regulations with 2 young children climbing around the barrels. But they've got to learn somehow, haven't they?
Exactly, and I just think barrel aged whites can be a lot of fun when they're done right, because sometimes people go, I don't like oak. Don't put any oak in my wine. Don't put any oak, because we went through that late 90s, early 2000s, where oak was used in a lot of wines to hide cheap, flawed fruit.
Yes,
really was.
Yeah.
But when oak is done right, that's what's important. You know, it doesn't have to be an oak bomb, but you can see here there's that
just the beautiful vanilla,
the texture, the honey, the vanilla, and I just think it just showcases when oak is done right, it can be your friend. There's still loads of fruit here. It's I look at my own tasting notes here. It's vibrant, it's textured. It doesn't disappear behind the oak tree, which I think is hugely important.
Hello to Jonathan's friends trying the tasting for the first time. I hope you enjoyed. I hope do give us your feedback as we go along. Now, it's quite interesting when we tend to think of South African wine. It obviously we can't get away from not talking at all about apartheid and the rules that came around the world to stop exports from South Africa, and particularly on the wine side of things, which forced the quality down. And a lot of the producers kind of came together, formed cooperatives. They were really struggling to survive. And generally speaking, when you talk about a winery that's a wine region which is trying to save money, the first place to do it is in making the wine, the techniques that you can use. You don't do things in the expensive way. You don't go out and pick them by hand and go, "Ooh, that grape's nice. I'll keep that one. I won't keep that one." It's all about send out a tractor, goes through the vineyard, grabs the grapes, and also, chuck them in a big lorry,
and also grow what grows.
Grow what the hell grows.
So if we go back, when we go in real market, early 1900s, what's my acronym?
KWV.
KWV, exactly.
KWV,
first word sounds like, was created. And that was originally meant to look after the quality of the wine, but it kind of went the other way. And, they started planting Cinsault, and Cinsault just grew like weed.
Crazy.
Massive yield, just, everywhere you look, there was Cinsault here, Cinsault there, there, everywhere a Cinsault.
Yeah.
Old Merc farmer grows from Cinsault. So we had these massive, massive wine lakes. So they were making a little bit of wine, but most of it was being turned into brandy. There's a lot of brandy being made. And, you started seeing in the 70s and 80s a little bit more wine, but it really wasn't until there was that ability for South Africa to export, to take their wines to other parts of the world again, post 1994, that you really saw the quality rise, because there was a level of demand for anything more than a table wine that you drank at home, because you weren't seeing the wines getting in or getting out. So there wasn't people didn't know about the wines from other parts of the world. We hadn't seen what South Africa could do. So we're generations behind.
Yeah.
So in two ways, I say, on the flip side, they've not followed what everyone else has done and kept up, which has meant they've got their own style now, which is wonderful. But on the other hand, there was no quality wine coming out.
No, we've had Sophia pointing out it's not flabby, and Kevin saying it's got plenty of acid, which is two ways of sort of coming to the kind of same conclusion, and it does have really, really mouth-watering kind of acidity. It's making it is making my mouth water. It's a beautiful, beautiful kind of thing.
I was thinking that when you were chatting about honeymoons, I'm there going,
Yeah. What's going on?
I can't say anything for a minute because it's just my mouth. Right.
When you look at the figures for it, the acidity is down on paper at 6.1 grams per litre. For those who've been following along with those kind of figures, we do have that. It's pretty reasonable for white. It's not over the top, but it's certainly it's punching its way through.
But I think you feel it because it's coming in through the back of that richness, and then you get that zip at the end. And it's a different flavour. I think sometimes when you have the lighter style wines, the Sauvignons, the Rieslings, those kind of things, the flavours you have that Granny Smith apple, you have that you associate with being tart.
Yeah.
So you don't pick that up so much as acidity, if that makes sense.
Now,
whereas when you have this richer style and then the acidity comes, you see it as a different thing rather than it being a flavour.
And I think it's a very nice little mix. So for those of you who've got your little brochure in front of you, we've put in our fact of the month this week, which is about malolactic fermentation.
Fact of the month this week.
Fact of the month this month.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, just happy to
Cheers, mate. And
is this your
and this
artwork?
is an interesting thing. This is the wonderful Wine Folly artwork, which shows a bacteria that's eating.
I'm going to pour wine number 2 before you get into malolactic
you do that. That's
fermentation.
Right. So, but this
I would pour wine number 2 as well. Everyone at home.
Okay. So malolactic fermentation. You've got the details in front of you. A bacteria called Enococcus eni comes along and chews up all the malic acid, which tastes of tart apples. Now, we've seen that in the tasting notes, haven't we? And produces a more sort of buttery character. And a lot of the Chenin will have gone through malolactic fermentation completely. Now, I don't have the details of how much of this wine has gone through it. But the fact that we're seeing high acidity...
Badgercam.
Oh, Badgercam. Was that that wine?
That's wine 1,
okay.
which we never got out.
Okay, all right. The fact that we're seeing those appley flavours and the fact we're seeing higher acidity says to me that he's tried to preserve the acidity by not putting some or all of the wine through that malolactic fermentation. So there's still plenty of that tart, zingy acidity from the malic acid that's coming in. And a bit less of that sort of buttery, creamy kind of character that's coming in. I think most sort of South African Chenins I've had have been very buttery, vanilla-y, and fruity, and in that kind of space.
Yeah, in comparison to the French style, which are your French style are a much lighter, leaner kind of style.
So here's what the bottle looks like. It says Thorn Daughters, Cat's Cradle. It's Old Vines. Now, Old Vines again. They're really digging deep down. That's a very good thing for in that kind of dry place. But it's worth saying that 2022 in South Africa had one of the wettest springs that they have had on in a really, really long time. So it then went into that dry classic summer period, which obviously is over Christmas. Do they know it's Christmas time? Yes, they do, because that's when they're harvesting the grapes. So really intense heat waves throughout the summer of 22, and yet the vines could dig down. The vines with the deep roots could dig down and get the water that they needed to survive. They then went very simple and kind of old school on the winemaking. When you harvest your white wine grapes, assuming that we're going to hand harvest them, so we're taking the clusters off the vine, you've got the choice of, do we run it through a machine which takes the stems off and crushes it, or do we just put them straight into the press and squash them, stems and all? Now, the stems can give a little bit of bitterness if you're not careful, but if you've had a really good hot summer, it's not too much of a problem. They're pretty ripe. And a lot of people say that you can press a bit lighter, more gently, if the stems are in there. It just kind of helps provide channels for the juice to come out of this thing. As you're pushing in all these grapes to get the juice out, those little channels that the stems form are a really good thing. So they use an old-fashioned basket press. They're doing it like that. They are popping it in indigenous yeast from the vineyard, which again adds complexity. It's quite an old school winemaking technique. I quite like it, and it's quite fun. So we've got in typicity.
I
What
think-
is typicity?
Oh, you could just
Sophia's
go
already.
down. Sophia's
oh,
on the
yeah.
case. So it's basically
That.
what your expectation is. So typicity is it being typical of either a grape or the region?
Exactly. It's because you could go off and you could make a Burgundy and you could try to make a super heavy, big red Burgundy that's got massive amounts of colour and tannins, and you could squeeze the heck out of the grapes.
And that would not be typical.
That wouldn't be typical of Burgundy. So
Absolutely.
this is typical of Chenin, but it's a complex, fun, really kind of old school one. It actually, dare I say it? So I took the piss out of him. Pardon me.
Standard.
I did. When we were talking about Loire Chenin,
Mm-hmm.
the topic of sheep came up, didn't it?
Rural minerality.
Rural minerality and wet sheep in particular.
Yes.
That's
Lanolin.
got that.
Lanolin.
Lanolin. There you go.
Lanolin.
What is the classic Loire Chenin that gives you that wet
Sauvigniers.
Sauvignon? Exactly.
Sauvigniers.
I'm getting a bit of that from this. Do you get that as well?
I was done with
You're
that.
done.
half
I
an
mean, you
hour
have a
ago.
smell of that again. Like, I'm not completely off the path there. That's
Oh, you're
got a bit
all
of
right.
wet
You're-
sheep in
you're-
it.
You're right.
The Welsh fans here will be on great.
But anyway, should we?
Thought with that.
Should we have a
Yeah, let's have a fun look at the tasting notes there.
And there we are.
Lemon, honey,
Minerality.
minerality,
Very
daffodils, also Welsh. There you go.
very enjoyable.
Very enjoyable.
That's a good. I
Excellent.
like that tasting notes. It's always good.
Kevin's getting the wet wool too. Excellent. Some people are on to wine number 2 already, so I shall.
I
move on.
know. I told them
All right.
while you were bring on about your
Okay,
right. What's that?
let's move on.
Let's
I
hear.
shall move the tasting notes on.
Let's move the
to
tasting notes. You want to swap the
wine
bottle
number
out?
2. Yes, indeed. Happy days. Right. So where are we going next?
We are going.
Chenin Blanc.
We are going Western Cape. Western Cape, and this is Memento. There was a little note in the chat I saw about how the tasting note said about Grenache. That is basically I talked to Marilise. I looked at her bio and put some bits together. And when she first went to South Africa, there was a big jump onto Grenache from her road thing. But she makes cool stuff wherever she goes. I met her a couple of months back at a wine tasting in London, and just the spark and how she comes to life and how excited she is about her wine. It's just inspiring. It's contagious how excited she is about her wines, and she makes stuff that makes no sense. Chenin Blanc and Skin Contact Verdelho mixed together doesn't make sense.
No, not
It
much,
doesn't make
no.
sense. But this is Western Cape. Most of the grapes coming from the Swartland again, so we're in the same kind of area. So this is,
And that's a good pictographic of a bush vine. And as you can see, the older wood at the bottom starts getting to these spindly little fingers at the top of it, which is only 1 year old. Wine of Western Cape there. Verdelho. Not a grape I'd typically expect to see in South Africa.
No, absolutely. And just to confirm with everybody, not the same as Verdejo that
No.
you find in Spain. Verdejo is its own thing.
Helpful.
Verdelho has roots in Madeira. It makes a dry style of Madeira. So you usually get this kind of like nutty kind of characteristic from it. But this is the Chenin Blanc here comes from 40-year-old bush vines.
Wow.
So lots of labour, lots of hard work. But yeah, these there's all kind of a link. So we've gone from Swartland, still Swartland, and she shares cellar space with Crystallian Finlayson,
Oh,
who we're going on to
Okay.
next. Absolutely.
Excellent. Now, in comparison, have a think about this wine. See if you can see some more of that buttery kind of characteristic, particularly on sort of the back of your tongue. That real kind of just texture and creaminess that you get. Can I?
Is that down to 100% malolactic fermentation?
It is, by any chance, I think we might have lucked into that one. it is 100% malolactic fermentation. So it has gone through that. And actually, we couldn't have come up with a better demonstration of two different examples of predominantly the same grape from the same part of the world. What does this technique do?
With a little
that
bit,
versus that.
Little bit of mallow,
there,
lots
of it. Well, all of it's here. So that's really, really fascinating, isn't it? A bit of diacetyl, absolutely, which is that real kind of buttery character you often get in those sort of the bread and butter Chardonnays and kind of things of the world. So yeah, but it's nice. It's not dominating it, and
so it's kind of fun. It gets
a little bit lower acidity.
So for your winemaking geekiness, what they do is they rack it off. Yeah, so rack it off, done. Get your clear juice. Then chuck the fine lees back into it. Give it another stir to give it another go to get more texture, more richness, more delightfulness to it. So
fine lees versus gross lees. All right. So when you settle out the wine, you get a lot of gunk at the bottom of it, first of all, and that's what's called the gross lees, and it's just little bits of skin, little bits of seeds and pulp. You want to get it off that stuff. That stuff doesn't tend to end up giving you good things. It gives you some protection against oxygen damage, but it's not a great thing. The fine lees is just the really, really sort of fine, small little bits of yeast and those kind of things that you normally get after fermentation, and that's a really useful thing. It gives some lovely qualities to the wine when you age it on that, and it can protect the wine against oxygen without you needing to put in any kind of preservatives like sulfites. It's a good thing to give it that bit of time aging. Obviously, you want to eventually get it off it, otherwise the wine is cloudy and not very nice to look at.
Yeah, so
this is nice.
Not wanting to push anyone towards wine tonight before we start. Tasting this wine a couple of months ago, 3 months ago, January was it?
Really good,
was my main reason for needing to do another South African tasting. I just think it's showcasing what is possible in South Africa with winemaking, with the ability to play, with the ability to, these winemakers have traveled the world. They've done California, they've done France, and then they come back home.
Yep.
And go, I've taken what I've learned. I want to make world-class wine from South Africa. It's not just follow the rule. We make Chenin Blanc, we make Pinotage. We take cool things and do well with them. This is 2019 vintage. So a little bit of bottle age. So you're starting to get these slightly nutty characteristics, which I think showcases what the Verdelho does in this wine.
Well, I think that's a really interesting question, isn't it? We're used to talking about what red wines do when they age. We haven't talked so often about what happens with white wines when they age. And I mean, red wines, you tend to get those sort of mushroomy, leathery characteristics. Tobacco, yeah. Well, in the white wines, what do we tend to see is those tertiary characteristics?
And I think sometimes it becomes more difficult to pick them out because a lot of them almost feel like they overlap with the winemaking flow. When we talk about oak and vanilla and spices and toasty and things like that, they move. But it's really when you get into that nuttiness, the nuttiness, the caramel, and then when we go from being apricots to kind of like dried apricot, like the dried fruits are coming through more rather than the fresh fruit. So
I see.
Yeah, but big things that kind of like that caramel, and depending on the wine, it feels, even if it's not technically, it feels more textural. There's more mouthfeel about it because we've got more of these savoury flavours.
Yeah, of course. That makes sense. No, thank you. That's good. No, we've got, other than people having some delicious Lomo. That sounds good. But this is definitely...
there we are. See, we love a bit of typicity today.
So typicity on this one. It's not a classic Chenin Blanc from South Africa.
It's not, but what would be typicity of a Chenin Blanc Verdelho from 2019 from Western Cape?
Absolutely, no idea.
And that's a joy. This is what I love about what we can do with this and send this wine out for people to taste, because is this the average wine that I wouldn't be walking down the street and taking a punt on this without tasting it first, because it's funky, weird.
It is,
but it's so cool.
That's a very cool wine. I'm appreciating that one. That's great. Another interesting fact about this wine is that it was bottled without fining. Now, fining is another part of this clarification process, that trying to make the wine as crystal clear as you can. And sometimes you really, really, really need it. Like, your wine comes out, you've done all of your stuff, and you try to let it settle down. Generally speaking, all of the heavier bits just sink to the bottom of the tank, especially if you're in a nice cool cellar. Because obviously, where there's a bit more temperature, things drift around.
Move around,
currents
yes, absolutely.
That is not what we've got here. This is wine which has just all settled down to the bottom, and they were able to clarify it without use of any fining things. Now, fining is a controversial topic when we talk about, whether a wine is vegan or not. You might put egg whites in. You might put some people use this isinglass of a fish bladder kind of
Sounds
derivative.
delightful. Though,
Doesn't sound very nice.
Bit of fish guts in your wine.
But the whole point of it is that it attracts through various different means, whether it's through the positive versus negative charge of the different particles which are floating around, and it attracts the bits, they stick together, they get heavier, and then they sink to the bottom, and then you get rid of them. So you're not actually drinking fish bladder protein or egg.
It's used in the process. And
it's used and then it goes.
You don't have bit of scrambled egg in your wine. You're okay.
You're not drinking wine, but of course, if you've got a moral problem with animal products being used, absolutely, of course, that's a problem. But you can do it without it, and this kind of wine proves it. It's just you've got to be quite patient, and you've got to make sure you've got a nice stable temperature cellar, nice low stable temperature cellar,
and a nice stable hand to get it out.
Stable hand to get it out, indeed, yes.
So,
we've done it. We one of our wines was unfined and unfiltered.
What, our Malvasia Rioja?
Yeah, the Malvasia itself was just came out, and it was just absolutely perfect. I didn't need to touch it. And in fact, when we tried to filter it for another purpose, to blend it with something else, it blocked the filter in about 5 seconds, didn't it? And it started spraying all over the winery, which was great fun. That was fun. Anyway, let's have a last look at those.
Before we move on, just when we talk about complexity, just look, wow. Banana, rich, lemon, pineapple, vanilla. It covers all the things. That butterscotch is that developmental flavour coming through with a little bit of cashew in there. An apple pie. So, and this is the difference. You got apples, and then you got apple pie. It's not the same thing, is it?
No.
And I think that's hugely important when we talk about our tasting notes. I say we can. You can do what you like with your tasting notes. But if we say something like lemon, is it lemon juice? Is it lemon rind? Is it the pithy bit? Is it candied lemon? Is it lemon meringue pie? There's a lot of. And the same with
sherbet.
And the same with apples. Is it a Granny Smith? Is it a Pink Lady? Is it baked? Is it bruised? Is it this? Is it the apple skin? Is it the flesh? That there's so many nuances within these. Things.
Was it a red apple versus a green apple?
Yeah, you can
notice differences in the skin. Just
dive down, but you take that green apple, which is what you get at the beginning of the palate, that nice freshness and that acidity that's there.
But it's far more tropical at the end of it, and you're going.
But then you go into that kind of developmental apple pie, that more pastry, brioche kind of buttered pastry thing towards the end of it.
It's not a horrible thing to have. It's like this is dessert in glass, and yet in terms of sweetness,
not much at all.
This has about 3 grams per litre,
which is half of a brut champagne.
Half of a dry brut champagne, dry in terms of champagne is one of those terms that doesn't actually mean dry, but we'll do that some other time. But yes, absolutely, it's a really, really dry wine, and yet those beautiful characters are coming through. That's lovely. So anyone enjoying this one? Is this a good? Oh, sorry, that was actually the next one, wasn't it? 3. There's 1.7 grams of sugar on this one. I'm sorry.
He's a tech sheet ahead.
He jumped ahead.
He's
so
ahead of the game. Look at
1.7 grams. So basically nothing.
As dry as it's going to get, which is fantastic.
But the next one, I think we should go and have some Chardonnay, because Chardonnay from South Africa is I love Chardonnay.
Absolutely. So this is if we look at the wine, this showcases when we talk about the regions, the districts, whatever. So this is from Cape South Coast.
Yep.
And then within Cape South Coast, we've got Walker Bay,
Yep.
And then
Oh,
within
that's not it.
Walker Bay, we've got Hemel. Not to be confused with the Hemel Gazette that we're on the front page of today.
We are on the front page. I should try to dig that up.
We should not. We should not. So
Okay,
before we pour this, if anyone wants to Google us and the Hemel Gazette,
yeah, your computer might.
for those who
very
joined us
CVs.
last month, you'll know we won the People's Choice Award for Best Online Wine Retailer, which was really exciting. And the local newspaper gave us a shout, and Alex was like, we'll do something. So he filled out the questions, and there's a lovely line in there that Alex likes to enjoy California Chardonnay.
Well, she said, what kind of wines do you enjoy? Now, what kind of wines does Jamie like? Like, you can enter in the chat if you like. What is Jamie's favourite grape?
Okay, let's put in the chat. If anyone who hasn't read it yet can guess what Alex put as my favourite wine, you can have a prize. We'll leave that in the chat for a little while we talk about Crystallium Clay Shales.
So the other Hemel. So looking at here, where's Walker's Bay? We are down.
I've got my map in front of me.
One that's slightly
so you're
text.
You're in
yes.
here. Yep.
So it's not that big bay there. That big bay that's on the very left of the Cape. That is where you find penguins. Penguins are not the same as Chardonnay. If you go though, the next little bit around, that little bit round, that's where you find Walker's Bay, and that's where you find Chardonnay. It's also where you can find a hotel made of a train, which I stayed in on my honeymoon when I went to South Africa a few years ago. So, that's great. That was in Mossel Bay, the Bay of Mussels. So this is all. So, for those of you, I'm sure plenty of you have been to South Africa, but the garden route is this route that treks along the southern coast of South Africa and is absolutely unforgettable views, like this wonderful combination of cute little towns by the seaside and wilderness of like this sort of unimaginable level. Anyway, let's have some Chardonnay. So Hemel's basically the place for Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, isn't it?
So yeah, all Cape South Coast, because you go Walker Bay, you've got Elgin, all those kind of those southern tips do really well. Lismore makes some great wines down there. There's lots of people making some fantastic wine.
Wow.
For those who've been, we've used this winery before, and we did their Peter Max Pinot Noir. So we've done the Pinot Noir from Crystallium previously. Still have some in stock, so if you love it, get some. But this is called Clay Shales. Can you tell me what the soil type's like?
No, I've just smelt it. It's just too
I would
nice.
guess that it's got clay and shale.
Probably made of something like that.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's this
like
clay.
Cheese,
it's a single vineyard plot with clay and shale in the soil. So shale allows good drainage. So the vines have to work hard, but then in the base of it, there is some clay that during the drier months, it holds on to some of the water, so you don't need to have irrigation. So when you've got clay, if you've got too much clay and you get a lot of water, it holds it up and you can drown your vines. It's not good for anybody. Too much clay.
No,
but a little bit of clay, if you're in a more arid environment,
quite useful.
It will store it quite well and will kind of leach it out as and when the vines need it. It's quite good for that.
Yeah, so, indeed, absolutely.
So having this little blend of this limestone seabed shale and the clay does really well.
Let me move the. Oh no, these are the taste notes. Well, let's get those up because this is great. Look at that. Everything from salt, lemon curd, mince pie, oyster shells, lychee. I mean, this is cool. This is really cool. So why is this not focusing? I'm sorry. I apologise about our camera but not behaving.
So these guys are about 300 metres above sea level, where they are, which allows this beautiful diurnal shift. And this lovely coolingness from the sea means that you get kind of the warm days, cool nights, so you can have a long growing season with having the breeze constantly coming through. It drops chance of getting disease. It makes it quite a safe place to grow the wine. And you talk about Chardonnay, and when we go, where's great Chardonnay? We talk about California, we talk about Australia, we talk about Burgundy. They're probably the first ones that come.
Or Essex.
The only way. But I think this is absolutely stunning. And I think when we see wines like this, and when we get to the end, you pay your pennies for this bottle. You absolutely do.
Goodness me, that's good.
I think when we get to prices at the end and we look at it, we sometimes don't give other countries value for what they do.
No.
You know, you go to, I don't know, pick a country and you go, well, they've made Bulgaria and they've made this lovely Cabernet Merlot Cab Franc blend, yeah? And it's 20 quid. And people go, oh, 20 quid for a Bulgarian wine. Right, but if you had something of that same quality coming out of Bordeaux, same blend, it would be 100 quid.
I mean, what's really frustrating is that when you go to South Africa, which I don't know if I've mentioned, but and this is me and my lovely wife Naomi on holiday at the Cape Grace Hotel, just overlooking Table Mountain there in the background.
Sophia, pictures count double.
But what you'll find is that these wines are stunningly good value for money. The exchange rate is ludicrous. The taxes are low. You can really just you can gorge yourself on these incredible wines for practically nothing. Yes, they're a bit more when they come over here. They're just competitive with the other ones from the rest of the world, but
they are. But
still
But I think from what I've told people, you know, people have gone to South Africa, then they've come back and gone, oh, can you get me some of that wine? I'm like, well, I can, but
it's not going to be the one.
But it's 40 quid. I'm like, but I spent £8 on it.
Yeah, it was £8 over there. Well,
hey,
yes,
I'm not ripping anyone off, but you've got to pay
Jeremy Hunt tax on that. Look at these tasting notes. This is fantastic. Syrup, lychee, salt, banana, dessert, wine, butterscotch.
You know, when are we doing a live cook along with Finn? I keep forgetting to get this because look at the tasting notes that come in.
Pan-fried turbot with sauteed potatoes. Yeah, Finn, you've got to come on and do some cooking with us. We do have our single ring electric induction hob here. Yeah. So,
one pot meals with Finn, Alex, and Jamie.
One of the. It's hard to kind of grasp the sort of the level the land suddenly goes up as you go inland from this, and this is just the particular vineyards that this was grown on are just behind the town of Hermanus. Hermanus is a really nice town. Sorry, I keep saying these things, but it's just beautiful. It's kind of like a Victorian seaside village, and you can go and sit there on the sit there in the town square, and you can enjoy a delicious meal and a glass of Hemel Chardonnay while looking at whales that are literally just playing around and splashing and flipping their tails in the ocean just outside Hermanus. So you've got the vineyards behind you, the whales in front of you, and you know it's just a really nice place to be, such as when we were here on our honeymoon in South Africa. I've got to play up to it now, haven't I? I mean, okay. Anyway, I'll shut up. But yes, there are some incredible foods that you find out there that pair with the wine with that richness.
By the way, you're at 10.
Nonsense.
11. Wow. So. But yeah, I just think there's back to my point about pricing, that we need to start allowing lesser known countries to be
considered in those
same quality wine prices. I'm not saying to people in South Africa double your prices overnight. Don't do that. But when we taste the wine and go, hey, this is X amount. Yeah. If a Burgundy was the same price, does it sit in the quality? The wine has to be, you know, I've been in different places. When I was in DC, Virginia was up and coming, and it always got that kind of little check mark. This is pretty good for a wine from Virginia. So you gave it, like, if it was 20% more expensive, you gave it that freebie.
A little bit.
Not dissimilar to what English wine has done over the last 10 years. This is pretty good for an English wine.
Can we make something this good in England? And but we compare it price for price. But I think there are some unique things that come from the South African climate and particularly the flora, because you've got this wonderful little herbaceous element that lifts it in the way that I wouldn't get from a Burgundy. And I think again, when you think about what is growing around the vineyards and spreading the air with these beautiful aromatic essential oils, that ends up in the wine, and that you just breathe it in. It's there's something so
it is. It's the same way as Aussie Shiraz and eucalyptus. You can see if your Aussie Shiraz has been grown near eucalyptus because it's in the wine.
It's true.
You talk
Yeah.
about salinity in a wine, and it's there because it's by the ocean.
Well, they're not
and
far
the
from
salt
the ocean.
goes
Yep.
on the thing. And that's the thing. It's like, why is there salinity in it? Because there's salt in it. Why is this taste of eucalyptus and menthol? Because there's eucalyptus and mint
Indeed,
grows.
indeed. And yes, there's of course the laws of supply and demand apply to these things. But we can always stay a little bit ahead of the curve because sometimes, there was a time where Burgundy was cheaper than Jamie's favourite wine from Germany. I nearly did it. Yes, and there are so many things there are trends and fashions in wine, and that drives the supply side of it. But
absolutely.
Provence Rosé used to be like €1 a gallon, frankly, and now it's more than that. But yeah, the cost of labour does feed into this, and of course, South Africa, the cost of labour is pretty low, which is both a good and a bad thing. It's bad for the people working there.
And cost of fruit isn't as high as anywhere else. But I think we could talk about socio-economics and politics.
We could,
and fair trade labour of wine for hours.
We could.
But my whole point is, these wines, if they are expensive, shouldn't be seen as not worth it compared to other things just because it hasn't got the name on it.
No, indeed.
Is what I'm saying. And I completely understand that, grapes are cheaper in some places, land is cheaper in some places, labour is cheaper in some places. It's easier to make bulk wines that taste good in some places. But good wine should be good wine. And then where it comes from is just bonus points.
It is.
Who is saying that I would drink Black Tower? My word.
Excellent.
Are we able to kick people out of the chat?
No, we're not.
No, we're not.
Okay. So, food pairings with these sort of wines. We did a big old
Braai
episode on the braai, the art of the South African barbecue. And when you go to these spots along the garden route, you find yourself sat overlooking the ocean, and there are these little barbecue spots for anyone to just turn up and bring their hardwood and to do a barbecue. And what I think there are some absolute classics like the braai broodjie, which is basically a grilled cheese sandwich on the hardwood barbecue. Epic. But I think for this, it was just some of the really lean kind of game meats that they have there, like the springbok and the kudu and all of the ostrich
that you had on your honeymoon.
That we had on our honeymoon. What? I don't know. What are you talking about? Did I go there? Okay. I think it's great. And what was a particularly nice one was where we actually went on horseback around Stellenbosch to go and have a little look around some of the wineries, and then we did some tastings. Then we found ourselves.
By the way, do you want a hint about your honeymoon chat? Wine 4 is very good. So that's
all right.
That's a sound to chop. So let's have a last look at the tasting notes, and then we'll.
Okay, last look at the tasting note. Lychee, banana. Despite people mentioning banana, it actually tastes really nice. Nutmeg, though, I love that. Or peach, oyster shell.
I tell you, I have to say,
that is cool.
I don't know if everyone's just on it tonight, but this just seems to be for a long time just the most set of tasting notes we've had. Yeah. It's absolutely fantastic.
Shall we move them on to wine number 4?
Let's do that.
Great tasting notes. Keep it coming. This is epic. Excellent work. We're on to some reds now.
Yeah.
Excelsior. Jolly good. That's great stuff.
Excelsior.
Let's pop that in front of the camera. And
so we are Breed River Valley, and this is Robertson. So we're going a little bit more inland here. So these guys make a decent amount of wine. These guys are not a small producer by any stretch of the imagination, but they've been around for a little while. It's mid 19th century. It's the De Wet family.
Insert your own jokes here about the De Dry family as well. There you go. Of course. Come on, you'd be disappointed. Calcareous soils, excellent. So Cabernet Sauvignon there.
So, but this used to be home. This is home for thoroughbred horses. Hence why on the label you've got a big horse. But this, I should open it, shouldn't I? We should taste it.
Yeah, let's actually taste it.
You should taste
shall
it
we?
while I'm telling you what I'm tasting without tasting it. I'm getting good at this game. But once again, it's not silly high alcohol. It's getting a. But it's Cabernet Sauvignon. Little bit of Petit Verdot in there that changes
7%.
Changes
on
year
this
on year,
vintage,
anywhere from
yeah.
about 4 to 10%. On this one, I think it's 7. And what Petit Verdot does to your blend is it adds floral aromatics. So whereas Cabernet Sauvignon sometimes has these slightly greener tendencies, this kind of greenness, this bell pepper, the kind of capsicum kind of flavors getting on it. It still has this, but the Petit Verdot just kind of gives it a little bit of a lift.
It's just like
rosy,
slightly floral,
lavendery kind of.
In fact, it's almost a little bit like the kind of lift you get with a Barolo, for example, with your Nebbiolo just giving those petals coming into it.
Absolutely, it's that kind of dried rose that reminds me of a lot of, like, if I'm blind tasting, even though it's not Petit Verdot, that kind of what reminds me of Tuscany and northern Italy, and go, this could be Italian because it's this dried rose.
You're right,
kind of thing.
No, that makes total sense. That's good on the nose. I'm going to have a little smell of it.
Is that another one?
Oh, is that me tasting wine on my honeymoon in Stellenbosch? I'm sorry, I don't know how that got there.
Okay.
I'll get rid of that now. But yes.
That's for you.
Okay, Sophia, you've trumped me. I don't know that one. I think didn't I go out with her in college? Yeah. So Breda River Valley. Let's pull up a map, shall we, again? And now, where are we talking about? No, that's still got the wrong picture there.
See, I can't see that.
It's just too close.
I need new glasses.
I wish there was a way of zooming in with this
It would be
darn
helpful.
thing.
So
I believe it's just
we're in
sort of
this
in
bit
the
here.
central point.
We're in this
not
blue
far,
bit.
yeah.
This blue bit here.
So it's just the north of the kind of Stellenbosch,
Go
Franschhoek
up,
region there.
up
That little
from there.
blue bit there, isn't it? There.
No, up
a bit there.
that. Yeah.
About there. So the red.
The fact is,
red bit just above the blue
The
bit.
fact is, no one can see your mouse where you're pointing.
No, I know. Disappointing. Anyway.
So we're going a bit more inland. So we're getting a little bit warmer, a little bit richer.
Yeah. But this is slap bang in the middle of some massive mountain ranges, and you've got the rivers going through them. They are quite decent sized rivers, and you've got, as the wind whips around the cape, it goes through these valleys, keeps the grapes nice and dry and disease free, which is a wonderful thing. That's a good thing. You don't need to spray them with all sorts of gunk,
just the blackcurrant on this is mental. It's all blackcurrant. It's like Ribena, and then you get spice. It's like if you tried to make Ribena into mulled wine, that's what this would be. Take some Ribena, bit of nutmeg, bit of brandy. Happy days. I like this. I like this a lot. It's
Thank you, Sophia. The beta damascenone is the rose petal fragrance. Thank you. That is useful. Daria, you've been to the same winery. That's awesome. Not on your honeymoon. Okay. And it does get cold at night. We got very cold when we were there, and having a little look at the Warwick winery, which does a wonderful wine called Trilogy, which we
Bordeaux blend, which
Bordeaux
is
blend, really nice,
heavy.
Cab Franc heavy. That was from when we visited there on my honeymoon, and that was us drinking from their special double-sided cup. Daria, did you do that one, or is that might have been a Simmonsig winery, actually, that one. Anyway, let's move away from that. It is blooming cold night. Okay, so how are they making this wine then?
They're taking grapes, they're crushing them, letting them ferment.
Thank you.
Sorry, have I gone back to square one here?
So this is definitely a labour of love wine. They they hand harvest everything for this wine. They keep all of the different parts of the vineyard separate, and they de-stem them. They take the grapes off the stems.
So
which,
how much whole bunch?
Don't leave any percent whole bunch. No percent whole bunch.
Not your kind of wine then.
But they don't crush them, and so they don't whole bunch them, but they do use a little bit of that same technique. So if you have a little smell, you might get a little bit of that kind of kirshy kind of note to it. That's a very good point. Thank you. But that's because they don't crush the grapes. Dari has been to Fairview and petted the goat. This is.
We got that coming soon, haven't we?
Excellent. We do. I think we have the goats. So let's bring the goats.
We can
up.
wait till we get to Fairview. Oh, he's got ahead of the game.
The Goat's Tower, the wonderful Goat's Tower. Of all follies in vineyards, this is perhaps the goatiest. This is the greatest of all time. You see what I did there?
Totes my goats.
Yeah. Isn't that wonderful? That's great. That's something else. This is the Excelsior winery there, Sans Goats. But yeah, it's just so green and wonderful. It wasn't like that. What the people who planted vineyards there have achieved really is, quite staggering. Yes, there have been shortages of water in recent years, both from climate change and mismanagement and all sorts of reasons. But they had to learn to master the water, and there is water around. It's just that they've got to take it from the places where it is to the other places. And obviously, a lot of irrigation occurs in these vineyards. The Swartland ones, you tend to have a bit more of the dry farming kind of thing going on. But these ones, it was all stainless steel, fermented for quite reasonably low temperature for a red wine, keeping it quite stable, and then gently pressed in a bladder press, a typical thing. And then a mixture of different oaks, both French and American, to age it about 40% to try to give it that.
I just think it's a very, for a Cabernet Sauvignon,
balance,
it's a lovely fresh style. Sometimes with Cabernet they try and push and get the tertiary flavors in quickly to try and get this kind of the meatiness, the gaminess. But this is all about fruit.
This was in my pre-fancy shirt days, I'm afraid, Jonathan. I was restrained before I joined the wine industry and met people like Oz Clarke and whatnot. Stellenbosch, it's pretty nice, isn't it? There, you've just got that classic range of mountains there. We've talked in the past about how when you look down from Tocara, which we've featured in various other ones, you can look all the way back down to Table Mountain. Really, really stunning place to go and see, and that's a bird.
Should we have a quick look at the tasting notes?
Let's bring tasting notes up. Okay, so it's
once again. Well, one day we'll get a big screen that I'll actually be able to see the tasting notes. I'm going blind in my old age.
Yeah.
But loads of blackcurrant, absolutely. Big jab for it. The dark red berries is great. But then we do have, a little bit of these tertiary, not much, but just enough to give it a bit of texture and go that you are wine and not just fruit juice. Well,
I think it's nice. It's not the most complex one that we've ever featured, but it's got tannin. It's got some structure to it.
I think this has got some spice. It's just a very good Wednesday night. Yeah. I just want a glass of wine. Get on with it.
Or a good barbecue wine as well.
For the braai.
Yeah, for your braai. Yeah, that's very nice. And in common with most of the wines that we feature these days, it's sustainably farmed, it's vegetarian and vegan friendly. It's and it hides the fact that it's 14.5% alcohol pretty well, I think, because it's got
enough fruit to have it balanced. It doesn't feel hot at all.
No, so that's a pretty cool one there. What have we got on the back of this one? So the De Wets of Excelsior, their family dates back to sort of the 17th, the very late 17th century, but still, it's again, that makes them sort of probably some of the earliest people to be really kind of conquering the art of viticulture
Well,
in
but
the area.
they had three important things: horses, wine, and ostriches.
Ostriches.
Yeah,
Okay.
ostrich farmers,
Oh,
and that's important news.
that is important news.
No badgers though.
Yeah, the main ostriches that I met on my honeymoon in South Africa were a little bit to the east of that. When you went across, sort of, you go through the Kleiner Karoo,
So
and you go up to Ocean,
I just want to go back. The main ostriches that I met,
yeah, I met a
that
few
is
ostriches.
that is not
That wasn't one.
a line that I would ever
When
thought
was
I would
that?
have
That's
heard.
not an ostrich. Oh no, that's zebra. That's zebra. Okay, that's all good.
Funny looking ostrich.
Funny looking ostriches. I did say that. I'm going to be controversial at this point. So,
Standard.
because it feels like Wine 4 is a good time to be a bit controversial. So, we've talked in the past about some of the wonderful improvements that have been made in the sort of social side of winemaking in South Africa, and how the fact that it's now become so much more meritocratic, and people who used to have no access to those sort of high level jobs, and now people like Ntseke Biela, who have
Aslina.
at Aslina Wines are proving themselves to be some of the absolute superstars of winemaking. I think it's quite my controversial bit, I'd like to say, is that the ANC haven't been brilliant. They haven't been brilliant for the for anyone involved in farming, but they've had this program over the last few years, which was incredibly well-meaning, is saying, why don't we're not going to be like Mugabe and steal people's farms and give them back to other families and say, here you go. They purchased them, so they purchased a lot of farms, including vineyards. And I saw some photos on Twitter though of the other day of a vineyard which had was an absolutely thriving one. I'm trying to find out the details of exactly where it was, but it had been purchased back. So the family who had farmed it for several generations had sold it to the government, who had then leased it back out to local farmers, native farmers of many more generations back than the other ones. And within 5 years, all of the vines had died and then been cut down and used for firewood. And the farmhouse had all of its wood stripped out and used for firewood, and all of its copper pipes taken out and sold. And I just think that's a really terrible situation. I think that's a shame, because and the stats of this project of reclaiming farms and giving them back to people who don't know much about farming, whatever the rights and wrongs of the past are, 90% of them have ended in failure, which is a rather poor status. So I kind of hope that, and there's also been all sorts of terrible bits of violence against the families who run these farms, and they live a life which is quite paranoid and dangerous. I do think that the one of the few places in the world where I've actually seen genuine old school horrific racism was South Africa. I went into a wine shop just down before we got to Hermanus, so coming from the east of Hermanus. I can't remember exactly where it was. And I walked into this shop and there were people being offensively, horrifically racist. And I just got in to go and buy a few bottles of wine, and I just turned around and walked out, genuinely shocked to my absolute core that this kind of attitude existed. So yeah, it's a difficult and challenging place. I don't think taking farms and handing them to other people who don't know anything about them is the right solution. I don't think being racist is the right solution. I don't know what the answer is. I just really hope that South Africa gets on top of things, because at the moment, 10 years ago when I went there, it was a beautiful, wonderful place with some troubles. And now it's a place that I'm struggling to say I'd love to go there now, just because I'd be a bit scared. But anyway, that's me being controversial. Let's talk about wines, and should we get on to wine number 5? Oh, good. We're not going to be controversial. We're doing Pinotage.
Pinotage.
Excellent.
Well, you can bring the goat towel back up, can't you?
Okay, Goat Tower.
Totally
We've all seen the
goatly.
Goat Tower, haven't we?
So before we talk about the Pinatage, what I like about Fairview is I met the guys a few months back, and what they try to do,
Oh yeah, I've still got that one. Oh, well, we'll mix it with the white. It's fine. Sorry.
what they try
There
to
you
do is they make lots of different wines from lots of different places. They've got holdings all over South Africa, but what they want to do is they want to make a Chardonnay that tastes like a Chardonnay, a Pinotage that tastes like a Pinotage, a Chenin Blanc that tastes like a Chenin
More
Blanc.
like burnt rubber.
Leave Pinotage alone. So they're just going to try and
Well, let's
they
turn the
want to
taste
be
notes on.
basically. We go back to that word, typicity, and that's what they're looking for.
But I mean,
So well,
can a grape like
let's-
Pinotage have typicity? It's a cross between.
Yes, it can. Yes, it can. So the reason Pinotage exists is obviously there was this massive, I mentioned it earlier, this massive glut of Cinsault everywhere as far as the eye can see.
Yeah.
And then they thought, oh, we'd like some Pinot Noir. So they thought, let's grow some Pinot Noir.
But it's a bit hot.
And they did. And it was too hot and it ripened too quickly. It would burst. So you either had to pick it far too early and it was green and horrible, or it was overripe and it didn't do very well at all. So they thought, well, what could we do? We could stick them together.
Mate them.
So maybe we could have Pinot Noir flavours, but it will grow like Cinsault, so it would be okay. And that was generally the concept. And they called it Hermitage for a little while.
Yeah.
So it's a cross. And it didn't turn into that. But Pinotage, it's taken me a while. When I first got into wine, when I was in the States, I thought Pinotage was the devil's juice. I really did. I do not understand how people made the stuff and wouldn't do it. It's, it tasted like burnt rubber and Band-Aids and TCP, and I was just like, why? I didn't get it. But where I came to a realization is that South Africa had a lot of problem with this disease called leaf roll, which is literally the leaves get diseased and they roll up. And there was a lot of Pinotage was getting that. And therefore not being good wine and having these off flavors, this burnt rubber, this tarmac flavor.
Well, again, under the sanctions, the good right sanctions concerning apartheid, of course, like there's not much for commercial motivation to go out into these vineyards and go, how are we going to get rid of a virus in the vineyard? I mean, there's no easy way of doing it. You just.
But the problem was, the wine was cut, and these farms had the option really of they either go, well, these grapes are diseased, so we're not going to make any wine, and we go bust, or we send it. So they sent it, and it's like, well, this is the style.
Yes.
And that's what it went with. This is the style, and it just wasn't. And it wasn't until years later that I started tasting Pinot Noir for people like Kapsich and those kind of producers. And you go, this can actually be really good. And just it's amazing that because a few cowboys decided to,
Goat Tower.
Goat Tower on the bottle. Look at that. Yeah, it just
a few people really ruined it for a lot of people.
And the problem is a lot of the entry level ones still have that slight-ish kind of flavour, and it puts people off. But I think it's not dissimilar to most things. If you've only had the cheapest of the cheap of anything, if you've only had the cheapest of the cheap of whiskey, you might go, I don't like whiskey. But then if you have a fine single malt or a great bourbon or a great Japanese whiskey, you go, oh, I get that. Pinotage can be that. We had a Pinotage in our advent calendar, which I thought was absolutely stunning.
I thought
really
it was
good.
fine. I mean, yeah. So
you like your Pinotage like you like your Beaujolais?
No, I'm
not at all.
I'm more on the Sophia side of things, which is that I've had lots of bad ones and I've had some which are fine. But I'm not. I haven't tried the Canon Cop. I want to try the Canon Cop. I want to try this this one that Daria is talking about, the Demoness Fontaine, which is epic. Let's have a look at that. that sounds worth a try. But yeah, it's funny. There's nothing wrong with this one. It's absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine.
That is positivity that, if ever I've seen it.
Yeah, but it's like, it's fine. One of our viewers sent me a text message the other day. He said, I loved the chemistry between Jamie and you on wine number 4 last time, where you were, Jamie was like, this is a brilliant, great value wine. And you were like, So, but I'm not on this one. It's absolutely fine. It's not got any of those burnt rubber smells, which is good. It's distinctive.
I think it's exactly what it is, but I think
Like
it's drinkable.
Rondo.
It's smooth. Right,
Ruffle.
All I'm going to say, all I'm going to say is that is just rude. That is rude.
No,
There is nothing positive or distinctive. Well, there's distinctive about Rondo.
There's plenty of distinctive. So, okay. We talked earlier about fining, which is where you add these things to the wine to strip it, to try to clarify it. Filtering does not change the flavour. It can change the texture and the feel of the wine, but it does not filter out any kind of flavour molecules. They're too small. Fining does. Fining definitely attracts flavour molecules. They stick to the things and they get dragged out of it. Now, the wines that I tried my fining trials on at university were Rondo. They were all Rondo wines. And what we arrived to the conclusion was that it didn't really matter what you used, just use all of them and as much as you possibly can
to get as much flavour out.
Get as much of the flavour out of it. And then you might be left with something that's a little bit bland, but at least it's not unpleasant. So that's why I'm not a big Rondo fan. And maybe there's some similarities here, but this is fine. Helen's also not but do you know what? This is why we do this. Look, we're now giving away.
I shouldn't have bought 30 cases of it to try and sell afterwards, should I? With your positive reviews.
It's not about selling the wine. It's about introducing people and learning.
If you would like some just really fine pinotage,
smells of cherry and coffee and cherry and coffee and
we've got
chocolate
just
and
the
cherry
one for you.
And burnt rubber and blackberry. There's nothing wrong with it. It's fine.
Oh, someone put spittoon. Not happy. Not happy. Wow.
Look, that's why you do a wine tasting. You haven't bought a whole bottle of it. Congratulations. We've saved you a bottle. There's nothing wrong with it. It's okay.
Okay, so what do we
Let's drink something else.
What do we do? What are we doing with that bottle then? Is that for you to
take
home?
You can have that one home. I'm not taking that one home. You can have that one. That's all good. Fairview Pinotage. It's fine. Thank you, Liberty Wines. Thank you, Fairview. There's nothing wrong with it.
You know what? It's got a goat tower.
It has got a goat tower. Let's have a look at the goat tower again, because that's so cool. There we are, goat tower. Whoa.
So does that not give the wine 10 extra points?
It certainly gives the wine extra points. I'm with you on that.
So
I'm definitely with you on that. The goat tower is cool. Okay, let's move on.
That might be the quickest we've ever done a wine.
But it's 9:15.
No, I'm saying on a single wine.
Right. While Jamie's doing that, I think it's quite interesting because this is actually the head of a hippopotamus.
I'm not.
You're not doing that. Okay,
we're not doing your Top Gear jokes.
Okay, that's fine. That is a lion.
He's not lying.
I can't remember when it was that I saw that, but I had a good zoom lens with me. That's probably another hippopotamus or something with a pointed hippopotamus.
Are you just really?
That's a giraffe smelling another giraffe's bottom. Let's move on to the wine.
You wonder why people sign off early from these tastings. My word. Right. Anyway, we are going to.
Let's go.
We are back to Sparkland Coastal Region, 2019, and this is Spiced Roots Chakalaka.
Chakalaka.
So for those who join us on the Braai, you will know all about Chakalaka. We crafted
fancy baked beans.
We crafted some Chakalaka with peppers, beans, spices.
Yeah, some like kind of chutneys.
Oh, a little
to add a sweetness and sourness to it as well. It was the best baked beans I've ever
Yeah,
had.
we used some wine chutney, didn't we?
Yeah, we
used
did.
the wine chutney with some raisins in it.
Yep,
Yeah. But
dried fruits, that
really
kind of
good.
thing.
So this is called chakalaka because it is. So
It's a bit of a mix, isn't it?
So this is originally from the team that was Fairview. So Fairview were doing all the single this typicity thing.
Yeah.
And then the chakalaka was
This is Charles Back.
the
with his
best
very
bits
good moustache.
popping it together. So this is a blend of Carignan, Shiraz, Mataro, Durif, and Ternat. So Carignan, you find in the south of France. It's also Mansuelo that you find in Rioja.
Yep.
So it gives boldness, richness, fruit. Shiraz, also Syrah, I think we know that, gives some jamminess, a little bit of spice. Mataro, and I love it when, countries that don't have it as origin use it. So Mataro is Merlot.
Yeah. What? Is it?
Yeah.
Mataro. I thought
No,
Mataro.
it's not. It's Mourvedre.
It's Mourvedre.
It's
Yeah.
Mourvedre. That's what I'm saying. That's what I meant. It's
That's why I'm
Mourvedre.
here. No worries.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So Mataro is Mourvedre, which is south of France, Côte de Rhône, that kind of thing. Gives earthiness to the wine. We've then got Durif,
Terrible poker.
which we find in Australia, and Durif is also the same as Petit Syrah in California. You see a lot of Petit Syrah, and that gives richness and jamminess. And Ternat's real home is Uruguay, and that is a really deep thing, and also in Madeleine in France, but gives a real kind of chewy, tannic kind of flavour. So it's a little bit of everything.
And I think, and I like the fact that the winery is called the Spice Route, and that is a key part of South Africa's heritage. Is that it was the stopping off point on the Spice Route around the Cape, and your Cape Malay kind of cuisine has all of these incredible sort of fruity flavors. They were trying to give all of the sailors a lot of fruit to give them vitamins and everything, and yet the spices were coming in. And chakalaka is perhaps the best example of that sort of it. There isn't a single recipe for chakalaka. We looked up about 17 different ones, and they were all just like, whatever, it doesn't matter.
It is.
You want a bit of this category, a bit of this category, a bit
some
of spice,
chutney, some beans, some spice,
Yeah.
and whatever else you got in the fridge, basically, wasn't it? Chuck some vegetables in it, some peppers, some whatever you fancy.
Are you kidding me? Excellent. Ostrich on the braai. Perfect. Well done. Well done. You win again.
So we got turbot and some braai
Turbot
ostrich.
and braai ostrich.
Happy
Hell
days.
yes.
Happy days.
But yeah, I mean, the whole of the wine region is a melting pot of different cultures coming together, different grapes coming together. The cuisine is the same, and I love the ethos of this wine. I think it's got concentration. It's got a real sort of just again, it's just that wonderful kind of.
We've got
mixture of
we've
that.
got a bit of a dilemma here now,
Oh,
haven't
yeah.
we?
Do we go for
a bit of a dilemma whether you're going to have kudu or ostrich? Decisions, hey?
Right, sis. Get it on the braai. Go and chop down a tree in the garden. It'll be fine, or a fence post or something.
That'll
A
be
fence
fine.
post will probably add to the subtle kind of flavour combinations and textures that you
creosote.
find. Yeah, exactly.
Bit of Ron Seal.
Have a baby elephant that I saw on my honeymoon. That's all good. But I don't know. Oh, no, is this the most typically kind of South African wine? I don't know. But I think it's delicious and it's really great.
This, yeah. If I was tasting this blind, would this
I
scream
probably
South
said
African to me?
Rhone or something.
I was thinking it's a bit. It's kind of like Côte de Rhône or maybe
Yeah.
Languedoc-y kind of. It's got a nice, but it's Syrah Mourvedre, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose so.
It's got those Rhone blending
CSM,
grapes in them,
but rather than GSM. But yeah.
Yeah, but Mansuelo has that richness. It's not a million miles away from Grenache in
No.
style. So if you said it was this if you were blinding and you went with a
if you
GSM
went with a
blend,
Roden
you
blend,
wouldn't you won't be a million miles away.
And it does have the smokiness. It has a real smokiness. Some of that's coming from the Syrah Shiraz in it. Some of it's probably coming from the oak barrels. Has seasoned French and American oaks. The seasoning is where they toast it and they age it, and that really gives it that kind of setting it sort of up for beautiful spicy flavors. Hair dye smell. I'm not sure about that one. I don't get that, but cola cubes.
I've not smelled.
I
much
do
hair
get
dye.
cola cubes. Do you get cola cubes like those? Yeah, not fizzy cola bottles. Those
No.
little solid cubes
The
of the cola
pinky coloured things
Yeah.
that you got from the old sweet shop, which was a cola cube, usually with a K though, wasn't it?
I don't know. It could be,
So, yeah.
but yeah, absolutely. It's very.
Good do. I like that. But once again, we come back and just look at the intensity and depth of the tasting notes. It just showcases that there's so much going on.
Indeed.
Have you got any pictures of big cats?
Well, I might have a picture of a big cat. I don't have one line so far, but this is not a big cat. This is a tiny little dog, which is kind of the same.
Cool. Anyway,
so
we are digressing here. Do you think it is time for the
I think it should be time
quiz?
for the semi-end of show quiz. Let's have one last look at the tasting notes. Yep. Great stuff there. We shall move it on
Okay,
now
have you got this
to
covered?
the quiz.
You know how to do the quiz this month.
Do I?
I don't know.
That's a
You're
good
in.
question.
You've got to let everybody put their
Join
names
the
in.
quiz. So everybody who hasn't yet got their phone out, do so now, because it is your chance to win big. And when I say winning big, I mean win the chance to send one of your friends a free tasting pack for next month's tasting.
Yeah.
So do all join in. We shall.
So if you speak to Colin, it's not about knowing anything. It's just answering quickly, is what I've heard.
Answering
right,
quickly
Colin?
is important. That's for sure.
So you obviously, if you get them all right, that's great. But once you get it right, it's about time. We tied last month, didn't we?
We did.
The same
yeah.
things, the same numbers.
This is the red. This is showing the red iron-rich soils that you find on the mountains that are between the Kleine Karoo and the Garden Route and down to the coast. That was an interesting drive.
Okay, we're going to give everyone another 10 seconds.
10 seconds.
And then we'll have a look.
What else have we got here?
How many pictures have you got?
Oh, look, yeah, there you go. So that was that. We had to cross through the rivers where the bridges had gone down.
Okay, cool. All right.
Anyway,
right,
we're ready for the quiz.
Yeah, if you ever watched a Cool Story, Hansel.
Cool story,
bro.
Here
we go.
The most widely planted white grape in South Africa is Chardonnay, Chenin Blanc, Riesling, or Sauvignon Blanc. Ooh, I'm not 100% sure of this one, but we're getting a consistent answer coming out.
Is that time up?
It is time out, I believe. So the answers have gone to Chenin Blanc. Shall we find out what's the correct answer? I don't know how to do this. I'm terrible at this. It's Chenin Blanc, correct. Well done, everybody. Shall we move on to the next question?
We've got to see who's ahead first. Come on.
Oh, yeah. Okay, it's Julia.
Julia, followed by John, followed by
5 seconds.
There's seconds in it. Question 2,
Be
go.
quick. Which professional golfer also makes wines in South Africa? Ernie, Luke, Tiger. It might be tigers because there's lots of tigers in Africa. Or Annika Sorenstam. Are there tigers in Africa? No, not really. They're more India, aren't they, I think? Ernie Els is looking like the top answer so far. And is it the right one? It is. Well done to half of you, or just over half of you. Kevin into the lead. Super speedy there. Well done. Okay, next question. Which of the following is not a wine region of South Africa? Constantia, Elgin, Otago, or Paarl?
Share your pearls of wisdom.
That's a very good point. That's quite an interesting story. When I was, I'd been going around collecting bottles of wine from various places in South Africa, and I suddenly realised that I wasn't going to be able to take them all in my luggage back home. So I dropped into a winery in Constantia, and they very helpfully packed them up and sent them back to England
Good
for
job.
me.
Good job. The time was up before you gave everyone that answer.
The answer is correct. Otago. Well done to most of you. Got that one right. You've been paying attention. Kevin's still in the lead. Oh, stretching out now. 3 seconds. Whoa. Are you ready for the next one? Which of the two oceans influence South Africa's climate? Is it the Atlantic and the Pacific and the Indian,
When did you become
the
David
Indian and the Southern Ocean, or the Atlantic and the Indian Ocean? It's a good question.
That's a good question.
It's a picture of my wife in a tree house which has its own infinity pool.
Okay,
There we
back to
go.
the quiz.
Back to the quiz. Next one. It is, of course, the Atlantic and Indian.
Oh,
John
John
has leapt into the lead with a very convincing lead there. Excellent. Next question coming up. What is the most widely planted red grape in South Africa? Pinotage, Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, Syrah, or Rondo?
Or Mataro.
Or
Merlot.
Merlot.
You know when you just say things, you don't know that's
Yeah,
wrong.
it's like
and then
I
you go,
and I was like, I don't want to question you because you're the
no,
dude,
you
but I'm
should-
pretty
you
sure
should
it's
always,
not that one.
You should always question. So let's have a look. There's some good votes for
Is it?
Pinotage. There's some good votes for Cabernet Sauvignon. No one thinks it's
No
Merlot.
one thinks it's Merlot.
No Merlot.
It's not effing Merlot.
Oh, this could change it all up. This could change
It
everything. Let's click and see.
It's Cabernet Sauvignon. John is still in the lead with 5 out of 5. A spectacular.
But not the best
But not the
time. So
fastest.
John's got to keep his knowledge up.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Okay, next question. Pinotage is a cross of. Oh, I think we've said this. So if you weren't paying attention, you're not going to get this one, right? Sanso, Pinot Noir, Pinot Noir Syrah, Cab Sauv, and Merlot. That'd be quite a good Bordeaux grape. We just call that Bordeaux,
Yeah.
or Sanso and Merlot,
We just call it claret. The
Claret.
claret's grape.
or a Claret or something. Oh no, that
That
actually
is a grape.
is it. Yeah. Okay. Sanso and Pinot Noir is the right answer.
Well done.
Well done, John. 6 out of 6.
Oh, but
Spectacular effort, but Kevin
Kevin could be there. One
hot
slip
on the
up,
heels
John.
there. Yeah.
No pressure. No pressure.
Next question. What is this? Is it a needle for pushing Riesling directly into Jamie's bloodstream?
Or blue
Is
nun.
it-
Or blue nun.
Or Blue Nun, which was the answer to what does Jamie like best? Is it a device to measure the oxygen content in our pouches? Does it give us the ability to measure the sulfite levels of the wine? Or is it a way to decant the most delicate wines that we find?
So
Well-
everyone thinks it's something techie, and it was. It measures
was.
the oxygen content.
Correct.
Oh, it's-
Interesting. So, John keeping the lead there.
But
just. So, Chenin Blanc is also known in South Africa as a different name. Is it Scheinburgunder, Mataro?
If you know what Mataro is.
Probably not Mataro, is it? Is it Steen or is it Pinotage Bianco?
If you know what Mataro is. That was great pronunciation of Pinotage Bianco. What?
That's excellent. Okay, the answer. Oh, 35% of you got it correct because it is Steen.
Scheinburgunder. That just for those who went there, that's not a grape.
But Weissburgunder
But,
is and
Grauburgunder,
Grauburgunder,
Spätburgunder.
yeah,
So,
Spätburgunder.
God, so that works out
Oh.
a genius one.
John keeps it
Just
7 out of 8 though. It's very good. It's very
This is
tight.
like Who Wants to
Okay,
Be a Millionaire? Fastest fingers first, isn't it?
next question. Quality sparkling wine in South Africa. Is it called Method Cap Classique, Method Traditionnel, Cape Town Bubbles, or Franschhoek Fizz?
All of the above, depending
Or-
where you are.
Fizzy Rondo.
No.
No, it's not that one.
Put your rondo in the soda stream. Oh, what have we got? What
What do we got? 81 for
You know what?
Cap Classique.
Whoever went for Franschhoek Fizz, I love you because I thought that was great.
John keeping in the lead
Oh,
there.
4 seconds
4
in
seconds
it,
clear,
going into
4
the
seconds
final
clear.
question.
The final question. And remember that I wrote this question.
Yes, the rest
last
of the quiz
question.
was there. This is the final question.
Is in South Africa, how far away on average is the nearest line? Is it 500 meters, 1,000 meters, 2,000 meters, a whim away, or 5,000 meters?
The pressure's on.
Whim away.
See, everyone. Okay, just before we put this up,
Yeah.
there is a split of 20%, 35%, 30%, 15%. No one thinks the line is that far away. 5,000 meters is out. But okay, if someone's lost on this,
obviously,
it is a whim
the answer
away.
is it is a whim away. A whim
So
away.
what does
a
that
whim
do
away,
for our
a whim
final
away.
scores?
But John wins anyway.
John wins by 3 seconds. Kevin was
thankfully.
no more than
Congratulations.
a whim away. So John, chuck us an email and let us know who you would like us to send next month's tasting to.
That was great.
So here we are. We're voting in for wine of the night. And we can put while we're doing that, let's put the prices up at the same time because there's a bit of a big
yes. Okay.
So while we've got the prices up, just to say we did send out a little newsletter thing. If you choose to read our emails, that's great. If you don't, hey, we send a load of stuff out. What we're doing this month is we've dropped our minimum order down to 60 quid, so it's easier to get free delivery shipping from us. But anyone who orders anything, there's a lot of people that were said, "Oh, you sell bottles as well?" Yes, we do. Anyone who buys any bottles from us through the end of the month, we're going to chuck you into a prize draw to win a 100 quid case of wine picked out by me. So there'll be some fun stuff. And when I get to pick a £100 case of wine, sometimes it might be not quite sitting at £100.
I thought that Chardonnay was spectacular. I think that the surprise for me is that the number 2 Chenin was cheaper than the number 1. I think that obviously from a winemaking point of view, I get why it's a more expensive wine. But I think that the number 2 for me was certainly.
But I'm saying the Excelsior, very drinkable, and I think the value for money on the Excelsior, is phenomenal. So, but while we're having a look through that, did we get a final count for Alex?
Well, we got Sophia saying count of 24. Sorry.
But also, if you pop on our website to buy any of the wines, because we only bring a little bit in when we do the tasting. If you want more of it, we can get it. So give us a shout. Let us know what you need. And, also, hey, pick the phone up, send us an email. If there's certain things that you want, if you are having an event, you're having a party, you're having people around, you want to get some wine, you've got a budget, give us a shout. We can get wine out to you. We can do whatever you want to do. We want to be your tasting people. We love that. But, if you need any other wine stuff, give us a shout. We, happy to do that. We were Online Wine Retailer of the Year, by the way.
We were. That's true.
So what have we got? So next month we're doing...
Great value. I don't know what we're doing
next month. We're doing Rhone.
Ah, yes.
We're doing Rhone next month, and then we're going on to the Terroir series. So it has been a lot of fun. I like South Africa, so hope you've had a really good night as well. But
it looks like wine 2 was the wine of the night. Just. So that's excellent. So thank you for voting for that. But all super close again. Wine 2, wine of the night, just beating out wine 3. Any clues on the Rhone? So what are we having for the Rhone? We want to do a bit of an exploration between South Rhone, North Rhone, village level, Chateauneuf.
We've got an interesting thing. There's some wines that I want, but there is a line whether or not my importer is going to get into the country in time. So it's on its way.
That's frustrating, yes.
So, but we're going to do a couple of Northern Rhones. So we're going to look at like a Gigondas, a Creuse, Hermitage to kind of compare styles. And then when we go into the Southern Rhone, we're going to do almost like maybe a Côte de Rhône against a Chateauneuf to pack from the same producer. So you can go... see where the value is, whether it's worth paying the extra money and the quality in that.
Yeah.
So it's hopefully we get the right wines that we want. Otherwise, we'll mess around a little bit. But as always, it'll be fun. Good wines from good people. So, but yeah, hey, if you like it, tell a friend, tell someone else to come and join us. It's always good fun. The more we get, the more we get in the chat, and people are fun.
And if you say you enjoyed it, you won't be lying.
Oh, I like that.
You won't be lying.
A rogue tasting. We'll go rogue.
Sounds good.
No blind tasting. We'll just send 6 wines out. No tasting notes. Can you guess what it is yet? To be fair, that wouldn't be much fun for people on catch up, would it?
Not so much. But I want to finish with a photo of a baby elephant that I took when I was on honeymoon in South Africa because it's a cool place.
Okay, fantastic.
And there we are. But thank you all. It looks like everyone's had a great night. We have too. And we look forward to seeing you
next month,
if
not before. Anything you need, give us a shout.
Give us a shout.
Cheers as always.
Cheers and good night.